Thank you, Rajeshwari, for those remarks. General Sharma, Mr. Sunil Gupta, and all assembled dignitaries here, experts who've gathered from all over for the fourth Kalpana Chawla Space Dialogue. First of all, a very warm welcome this evening for joining us here, not only on behalf of ORF, but on behalf of all our partners who have been supporting us for the last so many years. But first of all, let me begin by asking Rajeshwari, who curates this conference on behalf of ORF. Raji, how do you always manage to time your conferences so well? You know, last year, if you remember, we had this conference on the 16th of February, and just the day before, we had that ISRO's PSLV C-37 had created a record of sorts by dropping off 104 satellites into orbit, just as if you are dropping kids off a school bus. And that, of course, became the buzz of the day. And today, when we are assembled here for the fourth Kalpana Chawla Space Dialogue, just last week, you have had SpaceX create a new history of sorts by privately launching the world's most powerful rocket in operation as on date. And more importantly, showing that this could be done at tremendously lower costs by using perfectly reusable rockets. And we are already well on the way to making space far more accessible, far more viable commercially to everybody. Well, talking of Elon Musk, it's a different matter that his interplanetary courier service, which was meant to deliver the first Tesla into Mars orbit, just had a slight problem of maladdress and is now headed for the asteroid belt. But that apart, you know, there are no customers on Mars yet to complain. But if Elon Musk has his way, there very soon are going to be customers in Mars, Martians demanding more Teslas. So that is the shape of things to come. That is the shape of things as they're going to evolve. And taking a cue from SpaceX's successful launch, ISRO chief K7 also hinted at Indian plans of developing super heavy launchers, you know, who can put up 50 to 60 tons of payload into space by using reusable launchers. And looking at the complexity, yes, ISRO is looking at exploring various supporting technologies such as semi-cryogenic fuel-based propulsion and a lot of other reusable systems. But even otherwise, you know, unfazed by Elon Musk and without the accompanying histrionics, ISRO has on his own been single-minded in his pursuit of breaking the barriers of access to space. Now, we all recall Chandrayaan-1, we recall Mangalyaan, and of course the launch I just spoke about last year, where ISRO has repeatedly demonstrated that very few can beat it in making space launches more and more cost effective. But as the demands placed by various sectors, today everyone is using, you know, satellites. ISRO operates one of the largest fleets of satellites in the world. And if you add the ground-based infrastructure to it, the Indian space market itself is also worth roughly around $40 billion. So India is an established spacefaring nation, and India's space programs, yes, collaborate across various departments of the government to take in not just security and military applications, but health, education, agriculture, spatial planning, and e-governance. All these come under the ambit of the program. But we are going into a phase where the demands, which are going to be placed by all these multifarious agencies, is going to grow very, very rapidly. ISRO typically does about 4 to 5 launches a year, and it itself acknowledges that it should at least be doing 15, 16 in a few years. I would multiply that figure by maybe, you know, 5 to 10 times. That is what is going to be happening. So they have been working on, yes, issuing RFPs to the private industry to build satellites. A lot of things are happening. And looking to expand capacities in various ways which can keep up the speed of development, the kind of demands which are going to be made of India's space industry. But let us remember that against India's space market of around 40 billion, the global commercial market stands at about 380 billion. And Bank of America Merrill Lynch estimates the size of the industry to go up to at least $2.7 trillion in the next few decades, which is 3 times Morgan Stanley's rather conservative figure of roughly 1.1 trillion. Bank of America Merrill Lynch believes that there's a whole host of new drivers, which is pushing space age 2.0. That is the way they put it. Reusable launch vehicles, the growth of private ownership in the market, investment by more than 80 countries, and the falling launch costs from vehicles, they're all adding up to more and more players entering this game. And the US today holds more than 40% market share of the industry, and has been repeatedly noted. US success has been coming not from NASA alone, but from a dynamic, innovative private sector actively encouraged and promoted by NASA and the DoD. Companies like SpaceX, OneWeb, and a whole host of others have ambitions of developing low-cost satellite broad-based connectivity services. And 2 days from now, SpaceX is preparing uncharacteristically quietly this time. They haven't made much noise about it, but they are preparing to launch 2 demonstration satellites for the company's Starlink service. SpaceX hopes to have a global internet service up and running by the middle of the 2020s. That is what they're hoping. And that is where all the customers, all the data, all the commerce, all the money is. And they have competition by others, therefore the silence on this. Well, I spoke about Tesla having customers on Mars. If SpaceX's public filings are to be believed, they reveal that the company is hoping to become an internet service provider so that it can generate the moolah to finance its future colony on Mars. So while I did begin by flattering Raji and saying that she times her conferences very well, the fact is that given the domain we have dedicated ourselves to having this conference on, we can always be sure there is 365 days of the year something new happening in this space. No, it is a space full of activity. At the launch of the Falcon Heavy rocket, Elon Musk told the press, "We want a new space race because I find races exciting." So we are at a phase where the next big leaps in space technology will come for the private sector. That is what some people hope. Whether they will or not is a different matter, but what is new is that the companies we are talking about have ambitions that go far beyond grabbing the sundry contract from NASA or from ISRO. No, they are reimagining space. SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, OneWeb, Planet Labs today hope to reshape the entire space industry. And that is where their ambitions are. And our challenge, the way I see it, is how do we become a bigger and a better part of it? And that is a huge challenge. So Goldman Sachs today says that space is the next investment frontier. And as this new race heats up, there will always be winners and losers. Some countries will race to encourage private investments to literally rocket the sector forward far more vigorously and swiftly than it would have been if left to governments alone. Others will struggle with the regulatory frameworks in this area. The nature of the race and the competition both are changing. And as Jeff Manber, CEO of Nanorocks, puts it, the new race is no longer about who becomes the first to put stuff or men on Mars or on Moon or anywhere else. The new race is about being part. And I would add further, not about just being part, but the new race is about leading a society that is definitely moving into space. Now, the whole fact that this movement into space throws up a whole host of questions on governance, ethics, laws, which, yes, are also going to be debated. And it is important that these questions and debates, it is not just important to be part of these debates, but also to lead these debates, to have the bandwidth to be able to lead these debates. There are a whole new lot of space actors. We've discussed them. We've spoken about private companies, but there are smaller nations numbering over 80 today who have space ambitions. Countries across Africa, Latin America, name it, wherever they are. Why should they not be having a pie of what is, this whole technology which is doing so much for development, which is going to be growing exponentially? So that is the purpose of a conference, to hold nothing back, to put it all on the table, debate all these issues, whether of technology, whether of governance, with the challenges we face in this. Because finally, when all said and done, for all the competition that there is in this area, and all the one-upmanship in the history of space, this conference dedicates itself to one woman, Kalpana Chawla, who represents the best in cross-country collaboration. Collaboration that lies beyond the pale of institutions, of governments. It marks space as an area that belongs to no government or nation, but to all humankind. Her heroism will always be a reminder of both the risks, the challenges, as also the irresistible attraction which every child feels for space, which every man feels for space, which every woman feels for space. And in the end, she may have migrated from Karnal in Haryana to the land of opportunity, but she was more than just Indian or American. She represents humanity in doing us all proud, uniting us as one in the celebration of our achievements, in the grief of our loss. We all become one. So it is that her memory will endure through this dialogue in honor of accomplishments and the beliefs which she held. So once again, I welcome you all to the fourth Kalpana Chawla dialogue and to this inaugural session of this conference. Thank you so much.